Hello and welcome to Life After Narc. I'm Paula. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. And if you're new to my channel and you like this video, please subscribe. Narcissists expose themselves. And I'm talking about if you are in a romantic relationship or marriage with a narcissist, how they will eventually or sometimes right away expose themselves to you. Although if they spend any great amount of time with anyone, they will eventually expose themselves to other people that they spend a great deal of time around. Now, there are two ways that they expose themselves generally, and one is by basically telling the truth, believe it or not, and the other is projection. Surprisingly enough, the telling the truth sometimes comes quite early, even in the early romancing, love bombing phase. But a lot of times we do not recognize it or we dismiss it when they do it. So some of the ways that I have heard that they have done things like this, for example, is I've heard an example where, and because it's the love bombing phase, it just gets dismissed. So one example that I heard was, and this was a male, but it could be a female that did something like this too, was an example where they just said, hey, I'm going to be bad for you. And because everything was going so good, the person just dismissed that. But they were actually really telling the truth. I'm going to be really bad for you. And they were letting it slip that, yes, I'm going to be bad for you. And it's kind of interesting that they could say that because later on they could almost use this against you and say, see, I warned you about this. So they could blame you for this later on and say, well, I told you I was going to be bad for you, because you know how they like to blame you for things. So another example of this was a person that was talking to a guy very early on in the relationship, and he said, hey, all men cheat. Well, what he was basically letting her know was, hey, I'm a cheater. I'm going to cheat because I'm a man and all men cheat. So, and not picking that up, that, hey, this person is letting you know in advance that they are going to cheat. And the interesting thing that I did not pick up, because of course I knew nothing about narcissism or anything, is when I met my now ex, he had told me about 10 years prior to me meeting him, his parents had died, and he had, now that I know what narcissism is, he had had what I guess you would call a narcissistic collapse and had had to take off work and everything, and had gone to see a therapist because he was freaking out about that he did not know how to love, because he freaked out about his parents dying, even though he was married with 3 children, and he realized that he did not know how to love. So he actually told me the truth there, that he did not know how to love, and he had had a narcissistic collapse, although I didn't know how to read any of those clues or what that meant. So the next thing, so that's examples of them telling the truth. So the next thing that they do is project. So they let us know that they tell on themselves by projecting what they are doing. So examples of this would be if they're accusing you of having an affair, when in actuality, they are the ones that are having the affair. And one that my ex did very early on, when he was having one of his early rages, he started yelling at me. "I'm never ever going to trust you," he said. Well, what he was letting me know is that I could never ever trust him. And of course, your marriage is going to be doomed if there's no trust based on the marriage. But of course, you're not ever going to trust a narcissist because they are dishonest and never tell the truth. So he was letting me know that I could never ever trust him. Another projection that he told me was he was calling me Teflon, which was, to him, that meant that I could never accept blame for anything, which meant that he could never accept responsibility or blame for anything. And a last one that he did to me at the very end was he accused me of being greedy when I asked him to pay me back for gas because I helped him move, and he said he would pay me back for the gas. But then I realized, oh wow, that is even why he married me. He married me for the money that I had and my credit, and he destroyed all of that because I had quite the financial ruin at his hands. So anyway, what I would love to hear from you is what your experiences were. Did your ex-narcissist tell any truths on themselves? And what kind of projections did you hear? Anyway, thank you for stopping by, and I would